And the dates are September 8th. They're September 9th and 10th are the 2 days of the conference, but the event itself is listed as September 8th through the 10th. We really do like people to come in the night before and register, because it just gives me somebody to hang out with the night before with the show starts. So we do encourage that, especially if you're traveling from other countries. We're going to get there a few days for that so we can acclimate.
Hey folks, we're in for another show for Simply Trade Podcast. We're going to be talking today about an upcoming conference that you guys need to really be looking at, especially Lala, with all the stuff that's been going on lately. It's the one thing is we're in the era of it's never a dull moment. And I mean, things are happening minute by minute, day by day and what all, but the stress levels can go up and the anxieties, but at the same time, I keep coming back and going, you got to keep a calm head in the midst of all of this, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so to your point, that's exactly right, but so I see this conference, to me, I'm looking at it, we're going to be talking about the EU conference for ICPA, by the way, and we felt that we ought to have this show only because all the trade deals and all the trade talk that's going on, I'm looking at it a little bit of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? The Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, they have this option where you can call a friend, phone a friend. This is exactly this is for. You can make a friend across the pond from each other, right? And if someone needs help in the US and you're in the EU, there's your friend. Or vice versa. If someone's in the US and needs help in the EU, phone a friend. You'll always need that friend. And ICPA is you never leave short of friends there. It is definitely. I tell people after you leave ICPA, a conference, check your LinkedIn, and I'm pretty darn sure if you check against the attendee list, it's not going to be more than a 2 in the connections. In other words, you won't see a 3 degrees of separation. You'll either be a 1 or a 2. Definitely you're going to know someone who knows someone.
2 degrees of separation through the LinkedIn and all that through ICPA. Yeah. Hey, we do need to do this. Some of our listeners are not even in the trade. So ICPA stands for International Compliance Professionals Association. That's a big, mouthful of words there. It is a great group of people. It's a great organization. And it's something that also that if you want to network and you want to talk through, how our show goes, Lala's one of the things I like is we just do a roundtable discussion kind of thing. Well, that's what happens at ICPA conferences. And we got an upcoming conference. I guess it's in Brussels this year as far as this next one. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So let's go ahead and just bring in the folks into this conversation, and they can totally break it down for us, give us the dates, give us a location. For sure, it's in Brussels, and let's just talk about what kind of sessions and why it's important now. I mean, just recently, within a couple of days of today, of this recording, we just heard about a trade deal with the U.S. and the EU, and tomorrow being August 1, who knows what else can happen, right? So just to timestamp this episode and so everyone knows. So we have, of course, our ICPA fearless leader here, Miss Elisabeth. Elisabeth has been on our show quite a few times. So Elisabeth, welcome. And then we have Jenna Glass, who is from KPMG. And then Lori Shaw. And I'm sorry, Lori, you'll have to introduce yourself, where you're from. And then we have Kolja Mendel as well. So, and again, if I messed up any names, I apologize. But welcome everyone to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, the thing that I like, if you messed up any names, usually I'm the one that's doing it. So it's on you this time.
There's no Latinos on the show, so that's why I'm sure I messed it up. So anyway.
I like the way you say it better anyway. It's fine with me. It sounds better.
Elisabeth, so tell us more about this. You can kick it off.
Oh, gosh. Kolja, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is... Thanks. So this is a new product that we launched this year. We usually have our European conference in the spring, and it is a typical pattern for us of a 2-day, 2-track event. And the European Committee decided they wanted to try something a little bit different. This is a 2-day event, but it's one track, and the sessions are moving from an hour to an hour and a half. And they're going to be represented by a panel of speakers from. I'm going to let Kolja tell you because it's the private sector, I believe. So, like government, maybe legal, and industry experts. Kolja, you can correct me as soon as I tell them the dates. But the idea is for this to be quite a bit more perspective on a certain topic. So typically you'll have somebody get up, we have a speaker and they get up and they're an expert in drawback, for example, and they speak to drawback from one perspective, either like as a service provider or as somebody who's intimate with drawback. This is going to give our attendees a different perspective on one topic. And the dates are September 8th. They're September 9th and 10th are the 2 days of the conference, but the event itself is listed as September 8th through the 10th. We really do like people to come in the night before and register, because it just gives me somebody to hang out with the night before with the show starts. So we do encourage that, especially if you're traveling from other countries. We're going to get there a few days for that so we can acclimate. But Kolja could tell you a little bit more about the idea and the concept behind this event, because he was a big leader in this and in forming this concept. So.
Yeah, if I may, I'll be happy to do so. So, as a very brief intro, my name is Kolja Mendel, and I'm in the EU committee of ICPA for this and previous conferences. I'm a publisher by training, but really exclusively in trade. And as a managing partner representing Mendel Publishing, we are the leading information service and data content provider in the EU for global trade measures. So, as you may assume, we are very busy these days. And Andy, it's not only about what happens, but also what about not happens. So a lot of stuff announced on Truth Social and no CSMS. So that's a practical issue to deal with, for instance. So, coming back to the EU conference, the format of the EU conferences is really well established, and they have a unique flavor, I would say, because when you go to a conference in a country, usually you have a certain country view. So ICPA EU usually is ICPA US usually is US centric, whilst you may have a few sessions on other regions or geographies. In the EU, it's different because we have 1/3 of the participants coming from North America and 2/3 from the EU, but not then from single member states, but from really a couple of member states. So we have Americans, Canadians, Germans, Benelux, and from many other countries. So this means you really have a cross-national discussion about how things are applied on the ground, and this is very different in the EU, as you know. Also, we have a common legal system, and of course, folks from the UK who a few years ago left the EU and in Brexit. So it's really a format where you have a very diverse group of attendees, which really contributes to discussions you won't find usually, because you can really discuss subject matters cross-country. And our idea for this one was to, like in the US, you also have different formats of ICPA, not to just reproduce this very successful format where we usually have about 250 to 300 attendees, but to do something with a fresh look and a fresh concept. And the idea was to have 2 days, one back to the basics, which is classification, valuation, origin, and one other day where we then really speak about how these basics are applied in ESG, in sanctions and export control, and in navigating the current trade war scenarios. And the idea, as Elisabeth said, was then to have panels discussing these subject matters from different angles. So ideally, having somebody from the administration, could also be ex-administration, somebody from an industry association, some intermediary like a publisher, and somebody who's an actual industry expert, so that we have the same subject matter, but not from, one perspective, but really from the different perspectives. And as we thought, this would really allow for starting a discussion, which we then, after a quite short keynotes, would like to have actively with attendees. So that's our background idea.
Oh yeah, you hit on something that I think is really good. There's folks, to our listeners, a lot of them are U.S. based, obviously. This would be a great conference if you're here in the U.S. to attend there in Brussels, to get not only to listen to some of the details and the networking and all that, but listen to some things from a European perspective, because that's the only way we're going to really continue to take it, identify opportunities for in business, identify opportunities to help each other out. Is you've got to look at the other side of the table and look at that perspective and look at things. So whether you agree or disagree with certain things of the trade agreements or compliance or different rules and regulations, you still have to comply with all that. So Kolja, I love that in looking at it. So again, this is one too that is, to your point, Elisabeth, coming in a day early on September 8th, and then the conference is the 9th and 10th. Network with people. Man, I'm telling you, we have more fun at the ICPA conferences, and it's just a pleasure. Jenna, you're over there just shaking your head. Yes, it's like it has been a blast, hasn't it?
The ICPA conferences are like none other. The first one I went to, and granted it was in the U.S., but it's actually how I met KPMG and connected with KPMG, which I later joined 5 years later. So in terms of networking, it's fantastic. But everyone just shows up as compliance professionals, like you're friends before you even meet each other, and you're there to learn as much as you can, and you're there to make friends, and you're there to have fun. And Lori, I think this is our first work call together, but I know you very well from the conferences and love that about our relationship.
And Jenna, you made no, I'm sorry, real quick. I was going to say, Jenna, you made a really good point, because so you're KPMG, and this is very strange because you could probably be sitting next to Baker McKenzie, who normally you might be competing, but yet it's a very friendly environment. It's not oh, look at they're right there. Oh, why is that person talking to them and not us? Because they're going to come and talk to you anyway. So anyway, sorry, Lori, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I mean, the other point is it's so easy to strike up a conversation because you know why you're all there. Everybody has a common theme for being there, and the information sharing is just amazing. I have so many peers that I've met over the years that I know I can just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I have this going on in EU. Do you have something similar going on? Can we share facts and see, where we're each at? So it's been really amazing being a part of the ICPA organization and just having that networking and building that group of peers that you could just pick up the phone.
Something for, Jenna and Lori, and I'm sure, Kolja, you've got a hand in some of this in your own situation, but your careers have really benefited from attending ICPA conferences, have they not?
Mine has completely changed as a result of it. I was invited to a KPMG. Well, I spoke at the ICPA conference back in 2014 in Orlando. My first time speaking at it. I was in industry at the time. I was invited to a KPMG client dinner, had an epic night that I don't really think is appropriate to discuss on the podcast, but I will tell you about it in person if you come to Brussels.
Well, let me say, KPMG is known for hosting some great events. So
we like to have a good time.
Just call them epic.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I made some key connections that I stayed in contact with year over year. And when the timing was right for me in my life to look to move over to the client services, professional service side of things, I tapped into those relationships and they really went a long way. And now I've been at KPMG 6.5 years. I moved from San Francisco to Chicago. Now I'm in London with the company. So yeah, I would say I owe that to ICPA. Thanks, guys.
Well, I'll tell you, the other thing too is that in looking at this, the importance, and Kolja, I would really love your perspective on this. In as y'all are preparing this, planning out the conference there in Brussels, I guess with all the change, Lalo made reference to the recent, trade deal between the EU and the US. Right now, the devil's in the details. So it's very vague, very general, understanding all that. But on the flip side of that, to me, there's going to be some phenomenal opportunity. I know in the U.S., there's already a lot of sourcing of European goods. At the same time, I see a lot of opportunity for U.S. exports. And so in looking at it, to me, this is where, there's going to be compliance issues and transportation and logistics and sourcing, purchasing and things of that nature going together. I would like to, do you see an opportunity by the time September rolls around? There's going to be a lot more details rolling out of this. So in looking at it, what do you think from your perspective, as far as the importance of the ICPA conference in Brussels this year?
So as I said, the Europe conferences have been different insofar as when we also go to, as Europeans, to US events, but then we are usually aliens. Whilst we really have a completely mixed group, and we are always discussing the matters from both sides. So when we speak about origin, we look in the differences, how origin is dealt with in the US and in the EU. As a very simple general example, we don't speak of importer of record in the EU. We just speak of representation. So this is a source of misunderstanding, and this is consequently sorted out by discussing the subject matters from always a different perspective, so US, EU, member states. And you're absolutely right. In this unprecedented situation, which comes with also risk, but of course chances, when you have new technical, let's call it duty reliefs, then these are opportunities companies and compliance people can look into, and understanding the differences in how things are dealt with on both sides of the Atlantic will, of course, tremendously help to avoid misunderstandings like the ones I just have quoted. And the interesting fact for me is, and this is fully reflected by the conference, particularly now with the higher tariffs and their inherent risk, it is really that you have to go back to basics. It's, as I said, classification, valuation, origin, which may not play the same role when the duty is 0 or 2%. So this will allow for, let's say, some mistakes, which can be deadly when the duty is 50%. And that's exactly the right point in time. And yes, we have a harmonization in many fields, but we definitely don't deal with things in the same way. So discussing it from the different perspectives, not only sector perspectives, but also, let's say, country perspectives, is highly valuable, and it's the right conference at the right point in time.
One of the things that I see, especially in today's era, that would be vitally important, and this would be something that, trying to communicate to upper management, it's, as far as any travel and things of that nature, I know it gets expensive, but I would also say that it would be phenomenal if a company would send a key player from not only their compliance area, but their transportation logistics side of the house, as well as, and is equally important, their sourcing and the purchasing group. Can you imagine those three entities being represented from a company going to this same conference and hearing how important certain things are and some of the details and all that? Because knowing some of this up front would make their lives a lot easier, would it not?
Yeah, but by the way, it would help if they travel together, because then they can also speak to each other, what they usually don't do if they're in the same company only. Yeah? And it's absolutely worthwhile when salespeople know what DDP means, and that it's not clever to deliver to the US DDP in the moment. So a lot of opportunities, as you say.
It looked like you were getting ready to say something.
Yeah, I think the other opportunity is just understanding the perspective of the different countries outside the U.S. I'm a director of trade compliance for industry, and we manufacture in 4 countries globally. So understanding what our EU colleagues are experiencing during this time is very important to deliver the right message to executive management and the right advice.
I love it. I love it. Elisabeth, let me come over to you for a second. Is that where are you standing as far as how far along are you on enrollment there? I mean, do we have plenty of spots there, or is it beginning to close up on you, or what?
It's funny you say that. The actual phrase that I was going to share with our Trade Week committee this week was, hey, the Brussels conference is out of the ICU in stable condition, and now we're going to focus on Trade Week. Yeah, we're doing great. We've picked up, actually, in 3 weeks, we have doubled our registration. So we are nearing the limit. I think we have about 25 seats left. And so knowing attendees' habits post COVID, what I have found is that many attendees wait until 2 to 3 weeks before an event to register and book their hotel. That is a really bad idea for several reasons. A lot of these events that we're having moving forward are going to have a cap. So you're going to want to get in early if you want to be there in person. We still have room, virtually. I do want to make that a point. If your company doesn't allow you to travel to from the US to Europe for an event, we do offer it virtually. And with that virtual live stream, you do have an option to watch the on-demand replay within about 30 minutes of the conclusion of this thing. So you don't have to stay up late or wake up early to watch something that's on a 7-hour time difference. You can build that into a reasonable time frame, and you have 60 days to do that. So that's kind of a nice benefit as well. But hotels too. Like if you're going to wait till 2 to 3 weeks before to book your hotel, you're not going to get the conference rate.
Brussels. Brussels has so much going on. It's like if you're going to go to Brussels, and by the way, Brussels is a great city to go to. The food there is absolutely phenomenal, especially around the Grand Place. But to me, you can get any kind of international cuisine that you want there. And yet at the same time, dinner is an experience. It's not, let's hurry up and eat and go. Like in the US, we're bigger, better, faster, cheaper. Go with a group of people. You will have an evening for dinner, and it is phenomenal. But anyway, so don't wait to the whole point of this. Don't wait, but understand it's going to be well worth your time, just from a personal enjoyment, but then also networking and talking.
It's nice that you say this, because Brussels, of course, was chosen deliberately as the capital of the EU, with all the EU institutions, particularly when speaking with the regulator. The hotel, it's the newly refurbished Cardo Hotel, is, by the way, the next building to the WCO. So we are in a real trade environment. And as you say, I can only reconfirm, I've been working for the European Commission in projects since decades, and I've been many times in Brussels. It's underestimated. It's like a small Paris you can do by feet, and this is really nice. So just a day walking around. So come a day longer. It's worth a journey, definitely, and not only because of the food, also I would say.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, Belgian chocolates are very good too.
And beer, of course. It's a famous beer city.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Well, I think too, in addition to that, change in location and the wonderful seat of the EU, it's a great change in the structure of how we're doing ICPA and EU as well, right? Before we're doing the sessions hour to hour and listening to the experts, and here it's more of a discussion between the experts with the audience participating. Like, I'm very excited about the change in that structure.
Yeah. Lori, talk to our audience here about how to, with the upper management, obviously in the role that you're playing, and you're working for a manufacturer, and it's also dealing with distribution of parts and the equipment and all that, and you're importing, you're exporting, and it's quite a company. How do you communicate to upper management that if you are hearing this show, to be able to, what are you going to do to tell them to say, look, not only do I need to go, but we need to send people from our purchasing and logistics or whatever else, or even some of the executives themselves. It would be a good one to go to. What would you do to help go to the upper management? I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but it's
no, it's quite all right. I think one of the key messages is they're more involved today than they've ever been. We know that. I mean, for the first time, we have a state of trade release that we do to upper management biweekly. And I think it's critical to just point out that going to these conferences is going to give them some of the context that they're asking us for when we're sending them this information about the tariff changes, the duty rate changes, how social media is different than the regulatory releases. I think it's going to give them more context if they attend and get involved in those conversations, because they're already starting to learn from the beginning of this year the lingo. So it's going to help them to just attend and listen to the conversations going on, listen to the panelists and what their pain points are, because they already know from our experience and our conversations that we've been having with executive and upper management, but they need to know that it's not just our pain points. It's pain points with other industry leaders, with service providers, with writers, with software developers. There's pain points everywhere this year.
Well, it would be a strategic move to attend that, even at the executive level. I mean, I could see the chief operating officer and the chief financial officer would be two key ones that would come into play. That just understanding some of the details on that. And Jenna, from your perspective, you said you're based out of London right now. Obviously, the U.S. and the U.K. have struck up a trade deal that was one of the first ones under the Trump administration. With that, have you seen, has there been, if you will, a buzz of that? Plus, of course, the U.K. Separated from the EU. But I mean, what are you hearing from you?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the UK sits in such a unique place in that it is no longer part of the EU, but is very close to, still within Europe, very heavily impacted by decisions that are made by the US. So, what we're hearing over here is companies are trying to understand all of the perspectives, the local domestic UK perspective, the US perspective and the impact, and then that with the EU as well. So this conference is a perfect opportunity to connect across all those jurisdictions, and compare notes and understand pain points, like Lori said, and be better equipped to navigate them going forward. I think as trade professionals, we'll always tell you we don't operate in a silo. We need cross-functional collaboration, and now more than ever, we need cross-functional international collaboration as well. And that's what this conference will provide and offer you, because it's bringing together those three major perspectives.
Well, Kolja, why don't you wrap us up here? We've been talking for a little bit, and bottom line is with everything that's going on. I mean, we could talk. You mentioned something before we started that I love. Is like, man, with this new trade deal, we could talk about it for hours because there's good, there's bad, there's questions, there's frustrations, there's everything else. Man, this conference would be the ideal spot to sit there and listen to it. And again, in roundtable discussion. But what do you think as far as in any last comments here for us about the conference and attending it?
So your comment about C-suite being affected by those developments is totally right, and we try to reflect this in the second day, particularly where we will speak about environmental social governance. You know, the EU has corrected their approach to an industrial clean deal, but still a lot of measures coming, also adapted, what we'll look into. And we have the subject of sanctions and export control, which is also evolving. As you well know, we have a war in Europe, not that far from our countries here. And the third big subject of the second day is indeed navigating trade wars from a company, but also from a country perspective. And as Jenna said, it is indeed also a unique position of the UK having achieved a trade deal. And this trade deal of last Sunday with the EU still is so vague. If you look at the interpretations from both sides, the EU, in a way, said to the UK deal, this was not well negotiated. They would do better. The outcome is that's not true. And the UK has reached something which I think is very valuable in the moment, a certain degree of predictability, whilst this hasn't been reached for the EU at all. And indeed, in this situation, it is absolutely valuable to exchange with people from the different countries and perspectives, and to, as you said in the beginning, also build relations. And as you said, also my, let's say, professional relations in the different countries have been heavily impacted by attending ICPA conferences, because you simply learn whom you can just call for a quick and even right answer to a question.
I love it. Well, we'll have the contact information in our show notes, folks, but it's ICPAinc.org. So that's the website so that you can at least find out where our conference is and sign up for it. With that, folks, listen, I appreciate y'all's comments. It's like I wish we could keep going, but we only have a little short window there, but y'all have been fantastic. And I will say, folks, again, look at this from a standpoint by September. It'll be over 30 days from now when you're listening to this, or when we recorded this, excuse me. It will be a lot more details coming out. There may be a case where at least there'll be more questions and more specific. Right now, you don't even know what to ask. It's a lot more details will come out of that, but more opportunities are coming out of this too, on both sides of the pond, as we would say.
This year, anything can happen in 30 days.
Oh, that's,
between today and tomorrow.
Well, if you stop and think, had a major earthquake off the coast of Russia, and who knows, with some things like that, there could be some other catastrophe. It could be all these things are going on, trying to, it'll affect your supply chain. This would be a great conference to find out. So you say, well, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Or, collaborating. So it's worthwhile. Folks, we greatly appreciate you liking and sharing our show. We have literally, we're well over 40 countries now. As far as listeners, it'd be good to find out a little bit more there, Lalo, of any more from that. But any last words from you, sir?
I'll just, other than check the show notes for links to the ICPA registration site. And then, of course, if you want to connect with anybody else that's been on the show, you'll see their, at least their LinkedIn profile on there as well. And you can connect or touch base with them if you need to. But it's better if you just do it in person and just go see them at the conference. But yes, other than that, thank you all for joining us.
And if you have any other, it's like, you can't remember that, send a note to Lalo or myself. We'll get you to the right party. So,
exactly.
Folks, have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.